Hi, this is Andy from That Is Murder, and you're listening to Matt and Pete on Macho Grande.
Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible.com. Get a free audiobook download at www.audibletrial.com/Macho Grande. Over 100,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player.
We were so alive. You never should have opened your eyes. You were terrified. For a reason now it's taking so long for your action. This is a song about respect. You have to earn the things you expect. Never once did I forget that your life is one of regret. We are the ones who stand up and fight. Strength and power, standing for what is right. I am stronger than you. Mind and body, nothing for me to lose. You did your best to bring me down. With every shot, you thought you could win. Weakness at its best, you're grasping at straws. You crossed the line, you crossed the line. There's no more loss. We are the ones who stand up and fight. Strength and power, standing for what is right. I am stronger than you. Mind and body, nothing for me to lose. All you are is broken and alone. 'Cause what you reap is always what you sow. There's no wonder in your life. You make me fucking sick. Your words are only lies. You make me fucking sick. We are the ones who stand up and fight. Mind and body, nothing for me to lose. I am stronger than you. Strength and power, standing for what is alive. You never should have opened your eyes. You were terrified. The reason that it's taking so long for your exit.
Welcome to episode 202 of Macho Grande. I'm Pete.
And I'm Matt.
And we kicked off with All Hail The Yeti. That track was called See You Never. It's off their new album Highway Crosses, which is out now via Minus Head.
It is indeed. It's very cool. Worth checking out. It's like a sort of a thick southern groove metal.
Yeah, it sounds good. But I'll be honest, I've only been through the album once, but it sounded pretty cool. But I remember you raving about a previous one as well.
I didn't really get into the second album, but the first album was really good. Had a really sort of like haunting sequence in it with a sample from the film Session 9.
Session 9?
Yeah. Which isn't one that most people know about, but it was a really big film that me and a couple of mates from university really got into when I was at uni.
I'm going to have to look at the front cover now because I don't remember that at all.
Oh, it was kind of like because we were quite into sort of urbex, sort of urban exploration, and it was kind of like set at this sort of condemned insane asylum. So it was kind of these guys remodeling or sort of renovating or, you know, removing copper piping.
I've not seen that, and I don't even recognise the box art.
Okay.
Worth a watch?
There's just it's worth checking out. I mean, it's not great by any means.
It's got to be better than some of the films I've put on my film list for later.
Okay.
I have had a crap week of films.
But yeah, it's just got a cool sample from that, which I always thought was really cool because it was just like, oh, someone else's no such as mine. But anyway, yeah, that's really cool. So worth checking out, and that's available now. All Hail the Yeti.
The big thing today, really, we wanted to get the show out is we're going to talk about the new Architects album, Holy Hell, before it gets too late, and just play a few new tracks. So it might be a slightly shorter show, but we wanted to get that in while it was still relatively new.
Yes.
Have you been... I'll be honest, I've not really even managed to listen to that much. I mean, I've had Architects on pretty solidly.
Mm-hmm.
Other than hating the new Muse album, not that I'm a massive fan anyway. I went through that once, and I went through Can't Swim after you recommended that. That sounds really good. This Too Won't Pass, it's called. Yeah, really cool.
Yes. Yeah. Anything else?
No. Only. Well, yeah. I mean, only really from the last show. I've still had on that the Ocean album.
Okay.
So no, it's been. I'll be honest. It's been pretty hectic. So
yeah. Well, again, following on from the last episode, I've just been plowing through stuff. So checked out the new Shapes album, Greater Than, or their debut album. Debut Than. It's not what I was expecting. It's not what they were like when I saw them live. It's got a lot more of a kind of, because it's one of Bruce Dickinson's sons.
It is. Yeah.
And it's, from what when I saw them live, which would have been probably around the first single of the first EP, which was well over a year and a half ago, they were a lot more of a sort of kind of like a sort of metalcore light-ish band, whereas this is a lot more kind of hard rock, but with kind of the Streets / Enter Shikari style vocals now. No. So it's got that kind of like East End wide boy kind of vocal slant, which I was completely.
I was gonna say, you're not selling it to me.
No, I mean it's worth checking out just to understand what I mean, but it certainly wasn't what I was expecting it to be. It's a lot more sort of Enter Shikari in the way he sort of sings and speaks. I mean, like Rue has a very particular vocal style in Enter Shikari, and there's a very particular style in this Shapes album. So I don't really know what I think of it yet, because it's kind of just like, whoa, that's not what I was expecting.
They're another one of those bands that have had a ridiculous push. I mean, partly because of the Dickinson album, Dickinson angle slightly, yeah. So they have been in the press a lot, and they've got themselves on some pretty tasty tours. I have yet to see any of that come across at the club. Like, I've never seen anything get requested. And they seem to be another one of these young bands that have got the right push, but certainly in the demographic, I'm not seeing the request.
I think they need to get on the right sort of tour, because I haven't seen them on any particular sort of big billing. Now, I could be completely wrong, but I haven't seen them. Like, when I last saw them, they were supporting Cancer Bats, or they were opening for Cancer Bats, but again, this was ages ago now. So it's kind of like, they need to get on to some bigger bills, like, onto an Architects tour or something of that kind of level, because I don't know what they're up to at the moment. It's, anyway.
Okay.
The new Smashing Pumpkins album, Shiny and Oh So Bright, volume blah, 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 blah.
I've not heard anything off this yet. First of all, how big a Pumpkins fan are you?
I'm a fan of Pumpkins, but I'm also very picky and particular about everything since kind of Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness.
Right, okay, yeah.
So, like, I've dipped in and out on things on Adore.
Yeah, you see, I wasn't sure. I thought maybe perhaps in the 90s you might have been quite like an Uber fan, but
no. I mean, like, I really liked Siamese Dream. I loved Melancholy.
Which one has the Everlasting Gaze on it? I like that album, which I know is a bit later.
Yeah, that's album after Adore. That was Machina.
Yeah.
That had some really good stuff on it. Again, that's when I was dipping in and out. Like, they have really great singles, and then other times where it's kind of a bit too Billy Corgan. and I kind of lose interest. But, he is a brilliant songwriter, and when he wants to write a great riff, he will write a great riff.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the last couple of things that they've done, which haven't really been the Pumpkins lineup that you would expect, it's mainly just been Billy. I've forgotten Jimmy Chamberlain, the original drummer, has sort of dipped in and out of the band over the last sort of 15, 20 years. However, this album is the return of the original three, the original band minus Darcy.
Right.
So James Iha's back and Jimmy Chamberlain's back, and it's kind of like the build as the reunion album that the other ones haven't been. They may as well have been Billy Corgan's school albums in sort of way, and it's not bad.
Okay, cool.
There's enough on it that I'd be happy to see it live. And now that they're announced for download, really, really, really stoked that it's lineup.
Yeah, I mean, I've never seen them, and they're one of those bands. I don't think I've ever really put an album on start to finish. I've never really called myself a fan, but I like lots of their singles.
Yeah, and I think they're going to be great live. I'm excited that this is volume 1 of what I assume is going to be followed up with a volume 2, because this is only there's 8 tracks and it's about 35 minutes long.
Oh, that's manageable.
So it's very short, very snappy for them. There's probably one stud on it, a couple of okay songs, and then a couple of brilliant songs. So that's not bad for 35 minutes.
No, I'll get on that.
There's a couple on there, especially that throw them into the set list with a nice sort of collection of the first 3 albums and the rest of the career. I'd be very happy. Silent Planet's new album, When the End Began, really good.
Oh, cool.
And it kind of will get overlooked, having dropped kind of like the week before Architects. As like a big metal album, but it's really good. It's worth checking out.
I didn't know anything about that. I mean, I did like what was it? Everything Was Something. the previous album. I can't remember what it's called.
The previous album was The Night God Slept.
Well, that's not the one I'm thinking of. What was the one that was Everything?
There might be one in between. I've only got one from 2014, and then this new one.
Oh no! This was definitely. It was definitely after that, yeah. Everything Was Sound. That was good.
Okay.
Yeah, it's 2016.
I haven't got that.
Oh, okay. We'll have to do a swapsies on that then, mate.
Yeah, well, this is it's well good. Like I say, very good sort of metal riffs, and it's a great album. And the more I listen to it, the more it might find its way onto my end of year list.
Well, I was going to ask you about that. Have you seen? There are some sites that have already got their lists out.
Too soon.
Tell me about it.
I have already started whittling mine down to a sort of 15 to 20. So I'm already halfway there.
Right. I mean, I've kept my kind of tally throughout the year. I have to say, I have a worryingly large amount of albums that are in my kind of, I should really sort of listen to these more for the end of the year lists, because I don't like kind of cramming one in right at the end. Do you know what I mean? So... yeah, I've got a bit of work to do, I think. But that said, the first half of the year, I already had over 10 that kind of would have made it. So I think it's going to be tough this year.
Yeah, well, all you can do is try. So, let me see. Also, just another couple of albums that I've been blasting through. Obviously, Can't Swim has been played on heavy rotation. And the new On Earth album, Extinctions... It's got the S in brackets, so I don't know what this sort of like way to pronounce it is, but it's Extinctions. I don't think it's as good as the last album. I absolutely loved.
You really liked the last album, didn't you?
Yeah. But it fits really well into their back catalogue. Like, it's still solid. It's exactly what you would expect from On Earth. It's high quality metalcore.
Cool.
Like I said, there's obviously been like sort of delays with this album because the drummer has been going through surgery, and so there's been delays in the whole sort of recording process over the last couple of years. So there is a dip, and a noticeable dip in the geniusness that was on the last album. but this is still really solid. There's an absolutely amazing track on it, in particular called Sidewinder, which is just brilliant. The problem is it's following up an album that I thought was the best album that they've written. So
yeah, I'd agree with you on that. Yeah,
that's difficult. So yeah, that's everything I've been listening to, and there's still more on my list because there's still a few that have just sort of come in.
Very good. Right, let's. One of the things I wanted to do is to play a couple of tracks on this show and the next show from bands that perhaps we missed. And one band that's been talked about loads is Vola. And these guys are from Denmark, formed in 2006. It says they explore a mix of 70s style progressive rock, electronica, industrial, and metal, topped off with clear, beautiful vocal lines. And again, these are one of those bands that just seem to have had quite a decent push. They've been doing the rounds just recently with Monuments as well in the UK. Have you heard this album? So it's called Applause of a Distant Crowd.
I have not.
Yeah, it's getting really good reviews, and I've not listened to it yet, so that's why I wanted to play it, basically.
Okay.
So I'm going to get on this week, and we're going to play Smart Friend. Vola. Right, let's get into the news. Not got that much down. Obviously, the most exciting thing is that Neurosis are returning to the UK to play Supersonic Festival. I've never been to Supersonic Festival. It takes place in Birmingham, and they're the only band so far that have been announced. So I'm going to have to go to that because I've missed Neurosis on the last 2 UK runs. So
yeah,
I'm not missing it again.
No, I don't blame you.
Did you see Oh Sleeper have done a little video tease?
Yeah, like of a reunion.
So this, well, it sounds like because it was sort of on a hiatus. I'm not sure quite how official, because obviously several members of Oh Sleeper went to do what was it called? Was it just the singer, and he went off to do?
Yeah, it was just the singer with Woven War.
Oh, Woven War, that's it.
Yeah, went off with the remaining members of As I Lay Dying.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see who's actually there. I noticed on the picture it was 3 members.
Yes, I don't think the complete lineup has returned.
No, but it'd be interesting because obviously we love those Sleeper, so I'm hoping for good things.
Yeah.
Phil Demmel and Dave McLean have now gone from Machine Head. They've played their final show. The last song was Halo, so it'll be interesting to see what Rob now does with the bass player.
Yeah, because certainly when he did his final sort of statement, he didn't know if he was willing to stay on or if he was going to go as well.
I mean, it seems now like things are kind of just going to carry on and he's going to replace them. It seems to be the prevailing thought.
Yeah, that seems to be the clarification that he put out. Like shortly after he did his like YouTube video or Facebook video, where it was like very clear that his initial statement was kind of misunderstood because he was making it sound like the band is splitting up. That's it. It's all over. But then, like I said, it was the follow-up statement like the next day of like, oh no, just to be clear, they're leaving, but I'm still going to be around.
Right.
But yeah, again, I don't know what that means.
I'm not putting much else down really. Hellfest have released their lineup.
Yeah, I sent that over.
I mean, Hellfest has looked ridiculous the last few years. I mean, Main stage is obviously the 3 headliners of Manowar, Kiss, and Tool. Obviously, Tool is the exciting one for me for that. Most of the main stage, to be honest, for me is horrible. But then once you get down into the smaller stages, my God, there is a lot of decent bands.
Yeah, and this is the thing of like the fact that there's like 5 or 6 stages.
Yeah,
there's enough dotted around that I would be very happy all weekend.
Like the smallest stage on the Saturday has got Envy, The Ocean, Cult of Luna, Sumac, Willhaven, and Cave In. I mean,
it's pretty mental.
That's the smallest stage. That's ridiculous. And then so many good bands.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if it's going to be done next year, but one year it is going to have to be done.
Yes, I mean, as someone who has done it.
Oh yeah, that was your miserable year. I forgot about that.
But I would like to do it again, given the sort of caliber of lineup that they've managed on this.
That Sunday, yeah. I mean, you've got on that whatever the third stage is, in a row. You've got Cancer Bat, Senta Shikari, and then Refused.
Yeah.
And then you've got like Cannibal Corpse and Deicide on another stage, and then the second stage you've got Lamb of God and Slay. I mean, it's just crazy. It is really good.
Yeah, it is rather insane.
Yeah, I just wish it wasn't the weekend after Download, because that just kind of it's just the cost of being away from.
Totally. I mean, it's one of those things of like, it's also just getting there. I mean, it costs probably, if you total everything up, it probably costs less than it does to go to Download. But it's the hassle of getting over to France.
Yeah, my French ain't great.
I mean, certainly when I went, it was like half the price of Download.
Right, okay.
Even with the plane ticket. I mean, it's way cheaper and you get a lot more for it. And the last band plays at 1 a.m. So it goes well on into the night, and
I love how they design all their stages and stuff. It's really cool.
Yeah, stages are alternating, and so there's a lot of sort of chance to see whatever you want. It's made as user friendly. Obviously, the year I went is possibly a bad example because there was a lot that was horrific. But I've heard a lot of good reports since from people, people that have done it in years subsequent, where they've absolutely loved it. So we'll see.
Okay, you got anything else? Because I haven't put anything else down.
No, not really.
It has been a little bit quiet.
Yeah, it has been a little.
I mean, obviously we're ignoring the whole threatening thing, but I think that's been done to death now. I'm assuming you have followed that.
Oh, it's been. It's been up there with one of the best stories to sort of follow. I mean, I don't even really kind of know what the hell was going on there. I mean, I'd love to. I mean, it just seems like it was the musical equivalent of The Room.
Yeah, and what's his name?
That's what it seems like.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, more money than sense, and yeah.
Yeah, just really bizarre.
So, if you don't know what we're talking about, go and Google "threaten," and there's a wonderful story to be found.
Yeah, it's kind of staggering that it would happen at this time, in this day and age. But I did find it kind of funny that the last gig that was, the tour was cancelled as they were about to play Belfast.
And by that point, you would have thought people would have started turning up. So it's kind of weird that he suddenly cancelled it.
Exactly. It's kind of just insane. But again, I think it's like I did see a video from the bassist who put a statement up on YouTube where he talked about, Jared Threaten and his girlfriend were very kind, and that, they offered to send him home early. He was happy to stay out on the tour, but then after things really blew up, he was just like, yeah, it's probably best just to get home because I'm hearing weird reports from my family now. I'm like, because obviously it just became an internet sensation.
Yeah, absolutely nuts.
So yeah, anyway, fascinating. But other than that, it's just been a sort of like small bits of announcements of tours and video releases. There's been lots of videos released recently. Did you see the new Thrice video?
No. Which song was this for?
Only Us.
Oh, cool.
The first track. It's a really good kind of like mini 80s sort of nostalgia summer camp music video.
Oh, cool. Okay.
So they've kind of crammed a sort of 80s kids film into this music video, and it's just really funny.
I will watch that as soon as we finish recording.
Cool.
Let's play another track. Now, this isn't out until the 18th of January via Prosthetic Records. So remember where you heard this first. I'm not entirely sure about the name. It's called WRISTMEETRAZOR. And it says... It is basically conceived in the bedroom of guitarist and vocalist Jonah Thorne. Started off as this solo project, and then after releasing a demo, he got some more people on board. A couple of EPs. Fast forward, they're now signed to Prosthetic Records. This is the debut album, and they have a full lineup. WRISTMEETRAZOR. It's spelt here as all one word as well. I don't know if that's one of those things that's just going to stick, that it's always going to be typed that way. Also the track we're called is XOXO, and then in brackets, love letter from a loaded gun. So it all screams a bit MySpace, like when you look at it on paper. However, a couple of people have told me, no, you have to listen to the whole album. It's really good. And certainly, some of the sort of stuff like Vein and what have you that's popped out in a few years, this is kind of along those veins. I thought we'd give it a go. And it's not out for ages yet, so nice to know.
Okay, well, their band logo is very kind of Job for a Cowboy esque.
The debut album is called Misery Never Forgets, so look out for that in the new year. This track, XOXO, Love Letter from a Loaded Gun.
inside of me.
So there you go. That was Wrist Meets Razor. Yeah, on my first listen, there was just enough of that scratchy, high guitar nastiness combined with like new metal-y, you know. So yeah, I'm going to give that a go this week.
Yeah, there's a bit there's a bit of a sort of Taproot-ish kind of.
I used to love Taproot.
Vocal styling underneath the screaming. I mean, it's really snappy as well. I mean, like the longest song on the entire 9-track album is like 3 minutes, less than 3 minutes long. I mean, that track played is like 1 minute 50. Cool. Right.
There's a band that we both like a lot that have released their new album, and Architects are back with, what is this, their eighth album, I reckon?
Yes, it is.
All right, off the top of my head, I think it's the 8th album.
No, it is.
Yeah, okay, cool. So, Holy Hell. This, of course, is the first album that they've put out since Tom tragically died in 2016. And much has been said. I also watched the Holy Hell documentary. I watched that the other day as well.
Oh, the Holy Ghost one?
Yeah, and obviously Dan's talked a lot about, you know, one of the things on this album is they have used parts of Tom's demos and sort of recordings and stuff, and they've kind of woven that through the album. He hasn't sort of gone into details about it. I don't think they ever will sort of say, you know, this bit is and this bit isn't.
Yeah.
And at the same time, he seemed very mindful of, he didn't want people to think of this as, this is like our offcuts from the studio floor either. You know, it is this fresh thing that they've woven him into as well, which is a really cool idea.
But also that it's also very much like Josh from Silosis, who's sort of stepped into Tom's shoes.
He's presumably now regarded as just a full-time member, is he?
Oh yeah. Silosis is officially sort of on hiatus, and you know, like he is officially like the guitarist. This is also like the first time they are writing together, somewhat, you know, like officially, sort of like as a full 5-member unit, as opposed to, you know, what it seems to be Tom was the principal songwriter and did pretty much everything on lyrics.
Right, okay.
So, yeah. Obviously, this album's kind of got that weight of backstory to it. So I know it's kind of hard to kind of approach it objectively, but that's how I'm going to try and review it, because I think if I got into it emotionally, I would be too biased.
I've heard a couple of reviews on this that have got so bogged down in the story behind the album and what's happened that there was very little actual review. Like, which was interesting to hear about, but I think they just completely lost the point of, we are actually still just here to discuss the album.
Yes.
Which is pretty much all I'm going to do. I'm just taking it at its face value. Those themes, I mean, you know, obviously with certain lyrics and song titles, clearly that story is present within the album. But yeah, I'm pretty much just going to stick to what I think of the music. Yeah.
So with that in mind, what do you think of this album?
I was quite harsh on the last 2 albums. I won't wax lyrical ages about this, but I went back and listened to Lost Forever, Lost Together Again, and I kind of still stand by, I think there are 4 outstanding tracks on that album, and then there is a lot of filler and some stuff that I think is a bit meh.
I disagree.
I know you do. That's fine, right?
As I mentioned during that review, you're completely wrong.
You're
entitled to your opinion.
I still think there's a lot of fluff on that, and I don't particularly like. After how good Daybreaker was, I didn't like the new sound so much, which they then furthered and I think improved upon with
All Our Gods.
All Our Gods Have Abandoned Us, which is just this ridiculously heavy, you know, it is a very, very good album, and I still prefer that to Lost Forever.
Yeah, but you still didn't like it as much as I did.
No, not at all, and it didn't make my list. You know, they were the first 2 albums that have never made my top 10s. I think every single Architects album has made my top 10 list, including probably The Here and Now, which I still think has some of their best songs.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, there's some really good stuff on that, and some stuff that's
yeah,
still
yeah.
really heavy. I mean, even something like, Stay Young Forever and whatever, they're really heavy tracks, which are ace.
Yeah, I mean, again, without getting into it, I mean, given the career they've had since that album, I can appreciate that album even more for what it is. But at the time, it was very kind of like, oh my god,
Oh yeah, totally.
what is this band doing? How are they going to survive from this? They've essentially stuck a full stop in a career. But, they've come back from that leaps and bounds.
So when I heard Doomsday, I was a little bit worried that they were just going to retread the sound of the last two albums. And actually, although I think they've progressed from that, I think this is slightly now a nice mix of the sort of the new kind of sound they've had and a little bit of Daybreaker. I think there's more of that in this new album.
Yeah, well, I mean, clearly, Doomsday is clearly a nearly finished Tom composition, which is why it was released so long ago. I mean,
that's why it probably feels like, it was from those sessions. So it came out a while ago. So all that baggage, and as I say, some of that's my baggage with the band anyway. I have to say, this album, I really like it, and I'm fully back on board. Not that I ever really left. I mean, I think they're an incredible band, but I really like Holy Hell.
Okay.
A lot, because one of the main reasons for that is not that they've never had, it's not that the last two albums didn't have dynamics, but there's so much stuff peppered in this, be it little dropouts and sounds. There's tons of little synthy sounds and background noises and things going on with all the tracks, and that's the stuff I like. And not so much of the just constant sort of beatdown style riffs. There's way more melody in the riffs. And I think there's way more melody with Sam. He does a lot of different styles on this. So all in all, and then combine that with the amount of tracks that I like, this for me is right back up there.
Interesting. I would say that there is a lot of sameness to this album. I think that Sam does a lot of just the high-pitched samey stuff on almost every track. I don't hear the variation that you're talking about.
It's more that he does a lot of his clean stuff. So, like what I was going to say, his high, there's something a bit weird going on with his voice. Like he does this, he's still shouting, but it's gone high. But on this album, because when I went back and listened to some of the earlier albums, his vocals are lower. It's distinctively him. Now his high pitched thing is getting so high, it's almost slightly getting lost. And he's doing this weird thing where somehow he's managing to change pitch while still retaining it's really quite odd, and it's going a little bit so it almost doesn't sound heavy enough now.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's also a combination of like he's found it's an interesting sort of like octave that is a sandwich of his. I don't mean this in a sort of bad way. It's a sandwich of his of his vocal range singing, but is also screaming aggressive.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
An interesting way of hitting both without like affecting his throat long term. And I mean that from a sort of technique way. I think that that's kind of where this is kind of come from. But it's also, without it sounding insulting, as much as I believe this album is a tribute to Tom, it's also very safe and not venturing too far away from the sort of established formula.
No, I mean, all the trademark things are now there. The build, drop, vocal line in, all that's there.
Yeah.
Chuggy riffs. I mean, yeah, I think there's enough about it that it harks back to some slightly earlier stuff.
Yes.
I mean, it doesn't have that insane brutality that the last album had. But, Sam his singing stuff on here is really good. Like, some of the melodies. And then he's got a couple of different styles in there as well. So, when I say he's doing different things, I think he's blending quite a few different techniques and styles, and that's keeping it interesting. Like, he's not just doing that high-pitched sort of rasp and keeping that going. I was surprised by how much singing there was on here, to be honest.
The singing is kind of the element I expected to hear more of, because I expected this to be a more melancholic induced album. Again, understandably. And that's kind of what... And certainly the singles that came out prior to the album, not including Doomsday, because I didn't expect Doomsday to be on the album.
I'd forgotten about it. Yeah, I was quite surprised when that popped up for me.
I can see from a label point of view, because it was literally their biggest song to date.
Right, okay.
Of why you'd want to include it on the album.
It didn't feel necessary on the album.
It didn't feel necessary, but it also the singles that they released prior to this album, which are Hereafter, Royal Beggars, and Modern Misery.
Now, you see, I tried to avoid this, so apart from playing Hereafter at the club, I hadn't heard the other two properly. I just wanted to kind of have it fairly fresh. So other than hearing them perhaps that one time when they came out, it was only really the track 2 that I'd been playing at the club. And I have to say, those two, I mean, what have I marked down here? I mean, Royal Beggars is probably one of my favourites on the album.
Really?
I love the soft vocals on that. I love the repeating line, and the bass on this track through the club speakers sounds, it absolutely rasps out. And then that bendy riff on it's ace.
Yeah, I mean, my problem is because I'm trying to just look at it objectively and looking at it in context of the progression of the last albums and how much my love of the band has grown on each of those albums. This album feels like a consciously safe step back when you've got capable new members and you don't want to stretch your legs too far just yet. And it feels like it's kind of here's. It's hard to sort of describe because it's like I don't think that this is a terrible album. I don't think it's great. I think it's good, and I think it's good enough for what they needed to do, I suppose.
Yeah.
But Tom would have written a very different album, and he would have continued to push things. Like when you think like
I was going to say, I mean, there's nothing like Memento Mori on here.
No, exactly, and this is the thing. It's like there's things that were happening on those. And again, even though there's a sort of like set formula to an Architect song, like there's kind of the intro, the sort of the hard riff, the the verse, kind of a middle eight of of a chorus. Then you come back to an aggressive version of the intro, and then back into a middle eight. Then do a second verse with a lighter chorus. And then the big chorus, like there's a certain sort of blueprint that you could kind of drop over a lot of the songs from the last 3 albums. Mm-hmm. However, there was also variation within that. Like Tom had a sort of formula, but he also varied away from his formula, whereas this album seems to be very much just the formula and without sort of like breaking out of it much. There's a couple of exceptions. And they're probably the standout moments for me where they do stray from the specific formula. Obviously, one of those tracks is The Seventh Circle, which is aggressively a Josh-written song.
Yeah, you would have thought so, yeah. And one of probably the shortest songs they've ever written, probably, is it? It's like a minute and a half.
Probably. And then Mortal After All, which has a really interesting sort of like lead guitar parts that is doing some very interesting things which they haven't really done before, or kind of harks back to bits from Hollow Crown era, where it's kind of doing this really cool sort of like guitar lick that's up and down the fretboard, with also by sort of like down strumming the sort of like the beat down note. As I'm trying to describe it as a guitarist, knowing that you're more of a drummer.
I know how the guitar works.
but anyway, whereas the rest of it seems to be very much the sort of formula, and it's kind of like it feels slightly boring because of that.
Okay, what do you think of the first track, Death Is Not Defeat? Because I love that.
Yeah, I absolutely love it.
All right, cool. Okay.
This is the thing. I think that there are stronger songs on this than the singles they released.
Right. I mean, you're not that fussed about Royal Beggars. I think that's ace, that track.
I don't. I just think it's fine.
What about Hollow Hell? Because that's got all the the weird kind of keys. I don't know if they're violins or keys or whatever at the beginning, but it's got that whole sample section.
Hold on, let's start at the start. So, Death Is Not Defeat. I think it's brilliant.
Yeah, it is.
That's I think that, and well, it's not a single anyway, and they've done a video for it since. But I think that's one of the strongest songs in the album. I really like Hereafter. Yeah, and again, that feels like a very partially written by Tom type of song. I think Mortal After All is the best song on the album.
Okay, right. I like it. I wouldn't say it was the best, but yeah, it's good.
Holy Hell, I really can't get on with.
Oh, what? Again, right near the end, you get that massively brooding, bending riff that's amazing. Yeah, but I quite like that.
The intro for this, I don't know what it is. Every time I hear that intro, it's like, ugh.
Yeah, right. I thought that, but then I like the way they incorporate it in the song. And then by the end, once that nasty riff's happening, it's still there, but it feels different because of the riff that's around it. Like, that's really cool.
But this is what I'm saying is like, Tom would have done, or that would have been done differently by the principal songwriter previously, because yes, he does those kind. That's again the formula is having that kind of callback riff hidden within another part of the song later on. Again, part of the formula, but I don't think it works at the start of the track. And every time I hear it,
it is a bit cringy at the beginning. I'm with you on that. Yeah,
it really is like, is this the start of the title track?
Yeah, okay.
And then it gets going, and it's kind of like, okay, yeah, and
I think Damnation's a little bit filler.
I really like Damnation as well. I think that's my third favorite song.
I like it. I just think it's kind of an album track. I'm not that,
Okay, I think that's brilliant. Royal Beggars, again, I think it's fine. I don't think it's brilliant.
You see, Royal Beggars and Modern Misery, I think are fantastic, both of them.
Modern Misery, again, I think it's just fine. Dying to Heal, I really like.
Yeah, see, I wasn't as fussed about that. We've clearly got like a very specific what we like and what we don't about Architects.
Yeah, clearly.
Yeah, because that's the one I'd marked as. I've put stars by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 songs, and then I've put a little meh by Damnation and Dying to Heal. And it's not that they're bad. There's nothing on here that I don't like. I just found that I'd kind of skipped over those without really thinking. Not skipped them, but couldn't really remember that much from the track.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, like, don't get me wrong either. It's not that I aggressively dislike this album. I'm just disappointed that it's not what I thought or it's kind of not what I hoped it would be. It's rather sort of safe and a bit boring. And again, it's because everything feels very formula. And there's no sort of straying out of the formula. It's like, I get why you're being safe.
Yeah, I'm just glad that they've broken away from that sound, because I needed them to change it up a little bit. And although this might be changing it up to previous stuff, it's not a rehash of the last album in any way, though.
No, but that's the thing. It's not that it's not that it's changing it up to rehash anything. It's just that how to sort of describe it properly. It's like Architects have created this sort of zone that they operate within, and instead of what each album has done for me since like the debut album, it's just expanded that circumference even more, whereas this album feels like it's safely sort of 10 yards back from the circumference all the way around. So it's like it's just playing safely within the formula for the whole album, with a couple of little bits here and there, but it's not sort of like expanding on the sound. It's just, here's an Architects album, as opposed to, and again, maybe it's because they were sort of like, I don't know. I mean, I really adore the last 3 albums. Like, Daybreaker is one of my favorites. Lost Forever, Lost Together is possibly, I think, their masterpiece, and I absolutely adore All Our Gods. And I just think that this is okay.
Okay. Well, so getting to the end.
Yes, Seventh Circle I think is brilliant because it's just mental
and different for them.
Yeah, Doomsday, again, I think it's a brilliant song. I just wasn't expecting it on the album.
Yeah, I agree.
And Wasted Him, I think it's fine.
Yeah, it's okay. I mean, it isn't the best closer by a long mile that they've done.
Yeah, and especially whenever it's kind of like...
But it hits the right tones, and it's it has that melancholic,
again, it's playing safely within the... It's playing safely within the... I'm trying to think, what's the track? The Memento Mori formula, but it's not doing anything half as interesting as what Memento Mori does. And yes, it's a somber ending, but it doesn't. It finishes with the album with a bit of a whimper, and it doesn't. I don't know. And again, maybe you want to whimper because of this. I don't know. Again, I don't know really what type of album they wanted to make.
No, I mean, after anything like that, it's going to be tricky.
Yeah, and that's why all I can say is I think they just wanted to make a safe album that they could go out and tour. And that's what it feels like. It just feels like a safe album. And but it's solid. I just don't think it's anything particularly... when you compare it to their back catalogue, it's just in it. You know?
I should also say, I think it is still actually growing on me as well. I still need to listen to this more, because every time I listen, I'm still picking out little things and bits are growing on me. And like I say, those couple of tracks that I don't dislike, but I still don't feel like I know them well enough yet. So, but I really like it. I mean, I've not got a finished copy. Have you got? You've got your signed one, yeah? What's the album like? The artwork, life, and stuff.
I mean, I've probably listened to it now, going on sort of 25 times. So I mean, I'm probably sort of
probably on about
8
to 10.
I've probably listened to it so much because I'm like, why don't I like this more?
Yeah, well, I was like that with, I mean, God, like that last Mogwai album and stuff, and it's like, I want to like this, and
yeah, and then the thing is that then I'll go back and I've like played Lost Forever or played All Their Gods, and I'm just like, this just has something else.
Yeah, I mean, All Our Gods. I mean, I'm looking forward to going back and listening to that now. Because I did enjoy going back and listening to Lost Forever, even though I kind of still feel the same way about it. What are you going to score it then?
For me, it's a 7.
Okay, right.
I'm glad it's getting a lot of praise. I'm probably being aggressively harsh on it because I'm trying to critique it as an album, and I think as an album, it's a bit boring, but it's good.
I'm going to go 8, and I was sitting on 9, and I don't really like doing halves, so I will go 8.
Okay, which is probably around the same as what you've given the last couple of albums.
Yeah, I can't remember. I should keep better notes, because I couldn't tell you. I mean, I can't imagine ever giving Architects like a 6 out of 10. I'm sure I've never done that.
I'm pretty sure like the last couple of albums I've given sort of 10 each.
Yeah, and I try and be fairly fair in the fact that, you know, sometimes I realise it's my issue with the thing, you know, and the album is still really good. It just might be that, you know, for me, certain things don't gel.
No, and I genuinely think that that's kind of where I'm sat on it as well. I mean, like I said, there isn't the, you know, for anyone. I'm trying to sort of break it down. I mean, even just when you compare it to the last album, there isn't a Memento Mori on it. There isn't a Gone with the Wind on it.
Yeah, see, I don't like Gone with the Wind.
Really?
I still, no matter how many times I hear that track, I can't remember a single thing about it at the end.
Ugh.
This is why I need to go back and listen to the album now, because I've genuinely not heard it in a little while.
Yeah.
But I just remember playing stuff at the club and just thinking, that's a lot of stuff going on that I have no idea what happened at the end of it.
Yeah, I mean, things, even songs like sort of like Gravity and All Love Is... I mean, there's some interesting sort of like callbacks as well. And again, this is kind of like why, again, it kind of grated on me. For example, in Modern Misery, there's several chord progression callbacks to the track All Love Is Lost.
Right. Where
they repeat the chord structure but change the lyrics and the sort of lyric intonation, but it's still the same bit, and you can you know, I know it's one of those sort of like, it's sort of double dipping, callbacking a little bit, obviously, to the previous sort of, and again, it's just this sort of like, but it's not given the same kind of like, context in the way, like, for example, if Coheed called back to, like they've done in several songs where they call back to riffs and lyrics and things from other songs, there's a point to it. This just feels like it's a kind of like one of those kind of like Metallica and The Unforgiven 2 and 3, and it's just like we've accidentally rewritten the same bit.
Right,
It feels like it's like, is there a point to that, or is it just because that's the formula again? It's like, well, you know, like that sounds Architects because, well, we've written that bit before, but we'll change it, and it's just sort of, and that's what I'm sort of saying. There's lots of moments like that where it's just sort of like taking bits from here and there and kind of not pushing too far away from what people expect. I completely get it because they're probably nervous about writing a full album for the first time. They've got some big shoes to fill, given that they're now all writing the album together, and it's the 8th album in their career. And not, you know, the responsibility is now on all of their shoulders.
If I had one wish now of what's to happen next, when you look back at their early stuff, you know, think of the change from Hollow Crown to...
Well, even just from sort of like...
Oh, even, I was going to... Yeah, but, I mean, you know, in each one, the amount of change was ridiculous, you know, and then when you think of the Daybreaker to Here and Now, and then obviously that into... Lost Forever. You know, the changes are huge at the time. And now with these last 3 albums, that has, although you can say subtly there are differences, it's very, like you say about this formula, you know, they have found this formula that they're sticking to. And I would now like to hear something that does hark back to something like Here and Now.
I would only say that goes back as far as All Our Gods to perfecting or refining the sort of, like, I think the refining of the formula started on All Our Gods because Lost Forever hit upon close to what their sound is.
Yeah, it was very different to Daybreaker, though, I think.
Oh, no, but this is what I'm saying. It's like Daybreaker is very different to the Here and Now, and so that there's a progression there. Then there's a progression to, in a very different way, a progression again.
But then it slows down. Like you say, I mean, as you rightly say, I think it gets perfected.
Refinement.
Yeah, but that's where, and now this is kind of a continuation and a bit of a mush. Yeah.
Yeah, but this is what I'm saying, is like, there's the change from Daybreaker to Lost Forever. Then there's we really like this. Then there's a sort of distillation and refinement to All Our Gods. And now it's sort of a photocopy kind of thing where it's just it's using all the sort of like equations before and not sort of adding to it. And I think that's all I have a big problem with.
And that's what I mean. On the next album, we need something different is what I'd like personally.
Yes. And the thing is, there are hints of that because there's hints of riffs that clearly are Josh-inspired, that are distinctly new elements, which has me excited because it's like, good, you've established that you can write songs, and that's kind of what this feels like. It feels like a collection of, here are some songs, not an album. Now give me an album, if you know what I mean. Like, go out and sort of mix things around, do interesting things, create an album instead of just like, here's the track and here's the formula for the track. That's all.
Yeah. What track would you like to play?
Well, do we both love Mortal After All?
Mortal After All's great, and that hasn't been a single?
It has not been a single.
Let's go for that then. Let us know what you think. info@machograndepodcast.co.uk.
I guess we're mortal after all. One day, all of us will give up the ghost. Too much in the light to see what matters most. All ends will be met, and all worlds must collapse. Another part of this symphony. sweet insanity. But God is in the detail. I know that there's a part of me doomed to face infinity. 'Cause every wave has got a price. Has got a price. Yeah. And if I got the deal we made, we'll see the end of the pain we trade. All these walls will fall. I can swim all after all.
Okay, so that wraps up our review of Architects Holy Hell. If you have a review, as Pete mentioned, you can email in info@machograndepodcast.co.uk. Alternatively, you can actually phone in and leave a little voice message. Our voicemail is 05603 689 842. It's only a couple of pence a minute, so it's really cheap. If you just wanted to phone in, leave a wee message, maybe tell me why I'm wrong. Tell me why Pete is wrong for not liking the older albums.
Yeah.
Phone in and give us your thoughts. Alternatively, if there's something that you want us to chat about, leave us a little message. You can also talk to us on Twitter at Macho Grande Pod, and you can find us on Facebook and Instagram as well.
Yeah, cool. So before we close out on a band that you've discovered, Yuxa.
You were your film. You watched some brilliant films this week.
Oh, do you know what? I need to watch some decent films now because this week has been crap. I don't even know why I've watched half of these. They were just like in the list, and I was kind of working. I need stuff on in the background. Anyway, I just So I watched The Bookshop, which is crap. The Guernsey Literary and Potato Peel Society, which is really crap. Then I watched Call Me By Your Name, which admittedly isn't really my type of film, but that is one dull, sappy film that is rubbish. And then I watched The Dark Tower, which is watchable. You've seen that, haven't you?
No.
I mean, I've not read the books. I can't imagine it's done the books justice from what I know of the books.
From what I understand, it pales in significance. It's not even. It's a sequel to the books as well, which is the other thing.
Well, I wouldn't know. I mean, I've no idea. I had no idea what was going on by the end of it. But it is kind of watchable in that kind of. It feels a bit like one of those subpar 80s action type films like Krull. You know, there's a whole ton of shit going on, and let's just throw a load of whimsy on the screen, some cool little visuals, and some set pieces, and that'll do. And yeah, if you want a film in the afternoon over like the Christmas holiday, it's probably fine. Matthew McConaughey is always watchable. You know, he's great.
Well, I've heard he's rather over the top as this kind of weird villain.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I don't really know the books. I remember weirdly getting like book 4 for like as a Christmas present, and I'd not read any of the others. And I just remember trying to start reading it. I was like, what the fuck's this? So that wasn't very good. And the others really weren't my cup of tea anyway. And then, so to finish things off on a slightly better note, I did finally get round to watching Blue Thunder from the 80s. I think we talked about it. I think we talked about it earlier in the year. No, I'd never seen it. And I don't like Roy Scheider. He's ace. And that film's great.
I genuinely haven't seen it since the 80s. I used to have it on VHS.
I mean, it doesn't hold up that well, especially it's really not very PC. But
no, but most of the films from the 80s aren't. I mean, have you ever seen Short Circuit?
Oh, I used to
They
love
have a
Short
white
Circuit.
guy playing an Indian.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really offensive when you look back at it.
So I enjoyed it. It was good. It was fun. And that's it for me for films this week. I'm going to try and watch some better films. I tell you what I am enjoying. I started it, but I've not finished. On Netflix is the new Coen Brothers, The Ballad of Buster Scruggs.
I've been hearing adverts for that on various different podcasts. So
I'm not that far through, but it seems to be more like vignettes, and it's brilliant. Yeah.
I've heard it is kind of like a collection of short stories that they sort of worked on since.
Yeah, certainly so far. I'm probably about 40 minutes in, and it is fantastic. So yeah.
Yeah, I have heard, but yeah, I plan to watch that as well. I haven't actually managed to watch anything myself.
Oh, okay, cool. That's easy then.
I think I've just had on a few different stupid documentaries and things. Nothing major over the last sort of week because I've been so busy.
All right, well, we're going to get another show out before Christmas, and then obviously it will be time for the whole top tens thing. So
Yes,
don't
which
forget,
in fact, people can start putting them together.
start sending them in. Don't forget, we keep a list of everyone, and there will be some kind of competition at the end. So,
I'll try and sort of collate a listener top 10 going by what people send in. Plus, if people send in advanced top 10s or, bubbling unders and top 10s over the next couple of weeks, then it also gives us a chance to see any potential albums we've missed.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to start reading the lists, to be honest. When they
there's always some really interesting things that we just completely sort of overshot or bypassed completely. There's a limited time to see everything, but that's why it's good to see because we certainly have discovered some really good stuff.
And there's been lots of new bands this year as well, which is cool.
Yeah, just looking at, like I said, compiling the sort of top 10 that I briefly put together, or top 20, sorry, that I briefly put together, started last week. There's a lot of new bands in these things.
Cool, good.
So I'm excited.
Right, tell me all about Yuxa.
I would love to, because I was just on their page, and as I was talking, I clicked off their page, and I'm now having to reload it and find it again.
We're going to close out on a track called "Found It in Light," but I've never heard of this band, so you're gonna have to fill me in.
Yeah, well, that was a great segue. So, this is a band, former member of a band we played several years ago called Vespasian.
Oh, yeah.
Who I was really into. Again, just sort of this kind of Will Havenish doom metal-y kind of vibe that was really awesome. But this is, the vocalist it's his new band that he plays bass in. They're listed as a post-metal band based in London and Brighton. They have a Bandcamp, which is yuxauk.bandcamp.com. That's yuxauk.bandcamp.com. Yeah, basically this is their debut self-titled EP. This is a track from it, which they've been working on for quite a while, because I've been sort of like chatting to Chris several times. He's sort of like, "Oh, you'll really like what I've been working on." We've been writing this for a while, getting things recorded, and it's now all sort of like properly out. I've sort of sat on this for a couple of weeks. I think it's really interesting. Like I said, if you like what you hear, you can get the 3-track EP for free from their Bandcamp or SoundCloud, or you can check it out on YouTube as well. Yeah, I'd sort of like was chatting to him about what he wanted us to play, but the single, if you will, from this mini EP is the track that we're going to play. But again, it's sort of like this post-rock doom. And yeah, like you said, the track's called Finder and Light.
Sweet.
So,
right, see you in a couple of weeks.
Speak to you soon.
Macho Grande?
No, I don't think I'll ever get over Macho Grande.